Pendulum monsters, introduced into the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Near the end of summer 2014. A new game mechanic that had numerous players up in arms. They were believed to be overpowered, stupid, or unnecessary. And now, nearly a year later, what has changed? A decent amount of people have begun to welcome pendulums into both their decks and into their hearts, and with Cleforts leading the charge, pendulums became increasingly relevant in Yu-Gi-Oh! I, however, have not jumped upon the pendulum scale. The weight of the mechanic hasn't shifted me to its side for a number of reasons. Outside of Yosenju, there isn't a single pendulum archetype that I find interesting, and if my understanding is correct, Yosenju doesn't even necessarily need to run pendulum monsters in order to work efficiently. Let it first be said that I understand the need to create new types of cards in order to keep the game fresh. I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Would have died long ago if we stuck to the simple fusions and normal monsters of old. When Synchros and Xyz were added to the game, I was excited at the prospect of new ways of playing and new strategies to create. Different decks became viable and different combos became attainable. While I don't necessarily think this is untrue when it comes to pendulums, I also don't believe it runs exactly the same course. I personally find pendulums to create a state of, in some ways, unskillful play. The idea that one can have a seemingly limitless reserve of summonable monsters at the drop of 2 cards seems kind of ridiculous to me. Pendulum monsters return to the extra deck upon removal, only to be brought back to the field the very next turn if the opposing player cannot break the scale. This creates a different player-game relationship, as one no longer has to worry about potential drawbacks. Now don't get me wrong, I realize that there are always exceptions here, and I'm sure they exist in certain archetypes, but I'm leaving all of that out of the discussion, looking at the mechanic alone on paper. And I understand that the mechanic forces you to commit 2 cards out of your opening hand of 5 or 6 to the board that can potentially leave a lot to be desired. However, I find that to be somewhat of a short point, as if left uninterrupted, a pendulum player can really pick up the pace in only a few turns. Cards like Mystical Space Typhoon and Dust Tornado become increasingly relevant, forcing players to run multiple copies in an attempt to keep hordes of monsters behind bars. And I've personally never liked the idea of needing one type of card to keep a player from defeat. I understand that pendulums are more likely than not here to stay, and if one wants to continue playing the game, adaptation is integral. To be honest, I'm not sure what it'll take to sway my opinion on the pendulum game mechanic. In retrospect, however, has this past year changed how you feel about pendulum monsters? Or would you rather they be brought to a halt? Leave a comment and let me know, and with that, I'll catch you guys next time.